Hello, I'm Carol Flavin. My layout is the Edge Hey Strines Railway. Made for and with my grandchildren, and it sits in a room in my house. Too large, of course, to take anywhere. So for anybody to see anything about it, it's either appeared in articles in model railway magazines, I've talked about it at lectures, or I've talked about it in interviews. And in 2021, there were 3 articles in Railway Modeller and another different 3 articles in British Railway Modelling. The layout also has been featured layout in December 2021 in the British Railway Modelling World of Railways virtual exhibition. I focused on 5 areas when I wrote and organised the information for this feature. This video focuses on the 5 areas: a viaduct, a mountainside with a tunnel, railway arches, a castle and a factory. So I hope you enjoy what I'm going to show you, and I'll talk to you at the end briefly. The castle sits in the far corner of my layout. It's a ruined castle, and it was always intended to draw the eye into the far corner across everything else that's on the layout. It has a lot of detail on it. It's got people, it's got greenery on it, it's got steps up, and it started out as an aquarium castle, which I painted dark grey, highlighted with buff titanium and black, and then I sat it on a base to make it a bit taller. There is a lot of detail, as I say. There's a cave with water coming out of it. There's people clambering, probably in not very good health and safety way, all over it. And I finished it off by lighting it. The second area was an extra tunnel that I added. I'd got a mountain with track winding in and out of it that was made to be good fun for the kids, but there was a cliff area that just stopped and didn't look right. Wound round to the right, past a cliff face with a campsite on it, and through this tunnel, and it was quite an interesting part of the layout, and I wanted to finish it off properly, so I made a tunnel out of cardboard and created an area that made it much more interesting. There is a video on my YouTube channel that it explains it in a bit more detail. The third section is a manufacturing yard or factory area that sits below the castle and alongside a series of railway arches. This was something that the children really wanted me to incorporate on the layout, and I originally used some Metcalfe buildings which I have heavily weathered, and I'm going to be doing a separate video that explains how I did the weathering. But I do have to say, a fairly simple technique of grey wash combined with some weathering powders, which I tend to use the black one. This manufacturing area is named after my family in places as well, and they always really rather like it. I did incorporate a lot of detail in it because I actually really enjoyed making this area. It's one of my favourite parts of the layout, and I did spend quite a lot of time creating this. So I hope you enjoy it, and I'm going to, as I say, do a video with a lot more detail of how I put it together. One of the things I like doing on my layout is lighting it, so this area is well lit as well. This is the camera train, and it just runs out past the manufacturing area and onto the main line. The fourth section are the railway arches that I included in the layout. This is when I first started. It's a Metcalfe railway arch kit, plus various other bits that I added to it, including a station on the top. Now, the railway arches incorporate a shop that belongs to my daughter and son-in-law, who have a wine merchant shop. And I really wanted to add them into the layout. And when I made this, I also did quite a lot of weathering, and I quite enjoyed turning this into an area that looked reasonably realistic. For instance, there's a station above, and I created a tunnel and a way up to the trains. This is a picture along the length of the railway arches where the shops are, and another slightly more moody one, which I quite like making. And this is a view through a road bridge that leads to the arches as well. This is my camera train running along past the station, past the manufacturing area, past the arches and the shops in them, and out onto the mainline track. This is a second video turned inwards, just showing you what these arches and the arched support area where the station is above it actually look like. And this particular train runs out onto the mainline track and actually goes past the castle and Edge Hey village and the station that feeds the village, and comes to a halt just before you get to the tunnel that I talked about in the second section. The fifth section is the viaduct that I made, which is nearly 6 foot long and runs along the front of the track and the front of the layout as you come in through the door. There was a lot of adaptation and a lot of making in this process because I was incorporating a lift-up bridge. But I'm actually very happy with the result, even though it took me quite a long time to make it. The lift-up bridge incorporates a lake and a river, and the viaduct has a number of different aspects to it. Some of it sits on big solid concrete posts. There is an iron bridge. There is also an area of almost like Victorian columns and fencing. And I'm just showing you a video as we run along the front of it so that you can actually see that the second track, the lower level track, also runs it across this same area. Here's my camera train on the top section, actually riding across the viaduct and turning the corner towards the station that I mentioned earlier on above the railway arches. And it runs past the station and towards the castle, across a girder bridge. This final section is the camera train running behind a loco, turning off the main track and across the lift-up section underneath the viaduct. So you can actually see the detail of the viaduct and also the lake and the river on the left-hand side. It goes underneath a tunnel, which is underneath the viaduct, comes out where the viaduct is the Victorian section, through a bridge and into the area where there is both the manufacturing yard and the railway arches. It comes out onto the main track and continues onto the main track and comes to a halt. Well, I do hope you enjoyed that. If you were interested in any of the techniques that I used to make any of these areas, 5 areas, please go to my YouTube channel, which is written here, and look for the videos, the relevant videos, because you'll be able to see a great deal more detail in them there. Anyway, it's been nice to see you. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.